Hello and welcome to Restoration DIY. If this is your first visit, then it's good to see you, and I hope you enjoy the video. In this episode, I'll be trying an ash and two-tone epoxy resin bowl, but this time I want the colours to mix, so I won't be pre-cooking the resin. So let's get into it. The colours I chose were black and shimmer white. Again, I was looking for a colour contrast between the ash timber and the epoxy resin. The blank was cut off camera, and after placing it in the casting bucket, I glued on a waste block and mixed the resin, 2 batches of black and 1 shimmer white. My usual 2-part epoxy resin was mixed at a 2:1 ratio, and I used a black alcohol dye instead of mica powder. I was hoping to get a semi-translucent effect in the finished bowl. I did use mica powder for the shimmer white, which I was thinking would create a streaking effect through the black epoxy resin. And with the resin mixed, I added it all to the casting, a bit at a time from each batch, after which I added some weight to stop the ash blank floating, and I put it in the vacuum pot. This vacuum pot really has helped me get better castings. As the air is drawn out, the resin fills all the cracks and voids, also penetrating into the surface of the timber blanks. If there is a downside, then I suppose it uses a lot more epoxy resin in each casting, but I think it's worth it. I left it in the pressure pot for about 5 minutes, then after taking it out, I used a small blowtorch to burst all the bubbles that form on the surface of the resin, then replaced the weight and put it in the pressure pot. So with the lid screwed down nice and tight, I added around 55 psi and left it overnight to cure. It was a couple of days before I got back to this, and with the pressure released, I removed the casting from the bucket, gave it a quick once over to check for cracks, then I went ahead and cut the excess off the waste block, marked the centre, drilled a couple of holes and mounted it to the lathe. While this is playing through, could I ask, if you haven't already, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Around 70% of the people watching my videos are not subscribed, so go ahead, click on the small icon in the bottom right hand corner and subscribe. It will only take a moment. It will help to grow the channel, and I'm in this for the long term, so the videos and content will get better. Drop a comment as well, it's always good to read them, and I try to respond to as many as possible. And with that, thank you very much. With the blank safely mounted on the lathe using a woodworm screw and clamped in place by the tailstock, I set to shaping the outside. This was not going to be another pedestal bowl. I wanted to do something simpler. A straightforward bowl with an overhanging rim was the order of the day. I used Easy Wood Tools mid-size finisher to get the bowl to round. Then I set to exposing the ash timber blank. I had rotated a negative rate cutter 45 degrees to a fresh cutting edge, and initially this made short work of getting the blank to shape, but I wanted to get more practice with the traditional tools, so I switched between the carbide and 3/8 bowl gouge, removing the tool marks with a large negative rate scraper. simple design made it quick and easy to get to shape, but I got a bit complacent with the finer detail, as you'll see in a moment or two. I also decided against forming a foot on the base, instead opting for a simple sweeping curve from the mortise up into the side of the bowl. I used the large negative rake scraper to remove the tool marks and blend and fair the surface, and then I moved on to forming the mortise in the base. I used a different approach this time. I decided to use a thin parting tool to define the outer edge of the recess. Then I removed the bulk of the material with a ball gouge. Mortise finished, I sanded from 80 to 3000 grit. Then I cleaned down with denatured alcohol, but I could see the resin was still covering part of the ash blank, the finer detail I mentioned earlier. I couldn't leave it, so I had to take some more off, even though it would mean resanding the bowl again. Very gently, I removed just enough to expose the edge of the ash blank, blended and faired the surface with a negative rake scraper, and then I sanded, again, from 80 to 3000 grit. After sanding, I went through my usual finishing process, starting with a good clean with denatured alcohol, then sanding sealer, denibbed with a non-abrasive Scotch pad. After the sealer, Yorkshire Grit abrasive paste, 1 coat, cleaned away, ready for Yorkshire Grit fine abrasive paste, 2 coats, cleaned away until a paper towel isn't picking up any more residue. And to the final stretch, the 2 Novus products. First, the fine scratch remover, mainly concentrating on the epoxy resin. Then the plastic clean and shine, cleaned away with paper towel. So, with the bowl turned around, I could begin hollowing out. For this, I used the carbide cutter, a 3/8 bowl gouge, and a side cutting scraper. This is very effective at removing material quickly and accurately. The hollowing out went very well, with no dramas, so I'll be back in a couple of minutes.
My bags packed, timeline on track. My winter coat stuck in the closet way back. I won't be needing that. I won't be needing that. I'm ready to fly down 65, hit the coastline in the sunshine. I'm going to find my new high, hit the coastline in the sunshine. Freedom of mind. from the hurt and the bad times. I'm feeling so alive, I'm feeling so alive. Yeah. I'm ready to fly down 65, hit the coastline, in the sunshine, freedom mind, I'm ready to fly down 65, hit the coastline, in the sunshine. I'm going to find my new high, hit the coastline, in the sunshine. I'm ready to fly down 65, hit the coastline, in the sunshine. I'm going to find my new high, hit the coastline, in the sunshine. Freedom mind, freedom mind, freedom mind. I'm free.
A little bit of fine tuning with a large negative rake scraper and carbide cutter, and it was ready for sanding. I sanded from 80 to 3000 grit, then cleaned the fine dust away with denatured alcohol and applied sanding sealer, which I denibbed with a non-abrasive Scotch pad. Yorkshire Grit abrasive paste up next, just one coat. I use this even though in abrasive terms I'm taking a step back from say 3000 to 1000 grit, but it also adds finish to the wood. In a future project I will be experimenting with not sanding beyond 400 grit to compare the results. Yorkshire Grit fine abrasive paste, 2 coats applied liberally and cleaned away till there is no more residue picking up on the paper towel. Novus fine abrasive paste. This is just for adding a deeper shine to the resin, applied liberally. Then to finish, Novus plastic clean and shine. And there we go, another one finished. I think the ash and the silver black resin has really gone well together. In the end roll you can see a defined black line between the two materials that blends into the upper resin. It really highlights the wood. Another happy accident? Perhaps. I certainly didn't know it would happen. Anyway, if I could ask you to give me a thumbs up, subscribe and share the video, and comments are always welcome. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye for now.